Namaste and welcome to the 4th edition of the Global Festival of Oneness organized by Indica Moksha. We will start with a prayer. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. We're very pleased to have with us Shri Vijay Kapoor, who's going to talk to us on the topic Adi Shankara's view of cosmic creation. Before we start the talk, I'd like to introduce the speaker. Vijay ji has an MS in computer science from Berkeley and an MBA from University of Santa Clara. In 1976, he was so impressed by Swami Dayananda Saraswati that he took a 2.5-year sabbatical from his company, and he and his family moved to an ashram in California to study with Swamiji. After graduation, Swamiji asked Vijayji to be the secretary of the newly formed Arsha Vidya Peetham, and he's also the co-founder of the ashram in Sailorsburg. He took early retirement in the year 2000 to devote his time to study and teach Vedanta and Sanskrit, and in 2003, he established Arsha Vidya Center. Vijayji currently teaches 3 Vedanta courses per week to about 150 students. In addition, he has started 6 Gita home study groups in his area. Welcome, Vijayji.
Thank you, Anuradha. I'm very, very honored and very pleased to be here with you, with such an audience, and very excited to talk about a topic. It so happens that about 12 years ago, I had started to reach out to our Guru Bhais, even Swami Dayanandji, and asked him if there were some teachers whose books I could read in my native language, which is Hindi, my mother language. And so they suggested a couple of Mahatmas, but it wasn't until last year, as Ishwara's Anugraha goes, that I had a chance to study the works of Swami Akhandananda Saraswati. And it so happens that I was actually down with COVID in the September of last year. And that turned out to be such a blessing in disguise, because for 1 week, I was completely isolated from everybody, including my wife, and had nothing to do. So I took a lot of books from Swami Akhandananda that I've had for a while, and I started really going through them. And what a revelation it was, studying in Sanskritized Hindi, not just in simple Hindi, but Sanskritized Hindi really gives me a tremendous amount of flexibility, because if I read Shankara Bhashya, I can perhaps read 1 or 2 pages at a sitting. That's how much I'm not that good in Sanskritam. But when I go to the Sanskritized Hindi, I can read 15 to 20 pages in about an hour or 2. And so my ability to go through increased a lot. One of the books that I studied was the Mandukya Karika from Sri Gaudapada Acharya, and the detailed commentary on it by Swami Akhandananda. This is one of his books that I just wanted to show you. This is the Advaita Prakarana. So he has 4 of these, so about 1,000 pages, 215 verses. That was a revelation, and some of the doubts and some of the questions that I had about creation versus non-creation that I've always had were completely cleared by Swamiji. And so I thought that when I was approached to pick a topic, that's what I would do. And so this is what I will now talk about. So this talk will feature the works of Adi Shankara in the context of the principal work of his Parama Guru, Sri Gaudapada Acharya. Kind of like a relationship between his Guru's Guru and Adi Shankara himself. So as the historical records go, Sri Gaudapada Acharya, who originally hailed from the present-day Bengal, appears that he was traveling and wanted to go to Varanasi to settle down there. But on the way, he paused in a town close to what is now in Madhya Pradesh, on the banks of Narmada. And his primary shishya at that time was Sri Govindacharya. And so they decided to just stay there and teach. This is where a traveling mumukshu by the name of Shankara found him. This is how it happens. You go and talk to people and said, is there a teacher that you would recommend? And so on and so forth. So he met Gaudapada Acharya and impressed him to such a degree that Gaudapada Acharya instructed his shishya, Govindacharya, to tell Shankara the entire Shastra as much as possible. And of course, he was like a sponge, so bright. They say that he is really an incarnation of Lord Shiva. And he must be, because it is difficult to find such brightness in ordinary people in such a short age. So, in fact, the Diksha was also given on the place. It so happens that I was very fortunate about 4 years ago to visit the place. We were supporting a new school in Madhya Pradesh at that time, and my Guru Bhai took me to this place, and it is now called Omkareshwar. And it's one of the, not now, it has been called Omkareshwar, and it is one of the 12 Jyotirlingas. And I had a chance to visit the cave where this teaching took place. How blessed I was to do that. So the reason I'm mentioning all this in this segment is that in the writings of Sri Shankara, he highly respects Gaudapada Acharya. In fact, in one of the bhashyas of, I believe it was the Brahmasutra Bhashya, he calls him as the Sampradaya Vit, and means that he is the holder of the Sampradaya. So I know what a great honor and what a great respect Adi Shankara had for his Paramaguru. So that is, just set that aside as one of the points. Now, this leads us to the central theme of this talk, which is the vision of cosmic creation or Srishti. From time to time, the Upanishads called out the creation, as I will describe in a minute. By the way, just to let you know, the camera is really a little bit above my face, and sometimes I may have to look at the notes to make sure that I don't neglect something. So if I'm looking down, please forgive me. So there are many places, of course, where the Shruti talks about the creation. Aitareya Upanishad says, Saha ikshata lokanusrija iti. Aitareya Upanishad, yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti abhisamvishanti, tad vijigyasasva tad brahma. Tasmat va etasmat atmana akasha sambhutaha. Akash anandadhyeva iti kalukhilimani bhutani jayante. Many sentences for the Srishti, the Janma, all is given. And to top it off, actually, in Sri Vyasa's Brahma Sutra, which is, of course, the final word in the analysis of the Advaita Vedanta, the second Brahma Sutra itself says, Janma Adyasya Yataha. Brahma is one where the entire Shrishti came out from, stays there and goes back to it. So there you have it. Now, on the other hand, similarly, there are lots of instances where non-creation is talked about in the Vedas. Na eha nanasti kinchana. There is no duality, no plurality, it's all one. Ajayamano bahudha vijayate. One which is never born is taken to be born. Ekameva advitiyam. Tad etad brahma apurvam anaparam anantaram abahyam ayam atma brahma sarva anubhuhu iti anushasanam iti. From Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So it says that really there is no beginning, no end, no cause, no effect. It remains the same. There is no Srishti. So there we have it. We have one set of Vedic instructions that talk about Srishti, and another set of instructions, statements that talked about no Srishti. So these are contradictions that should not be seen as conflicts. So a conflict is between two opposing viewpoints that don't agree with each other, such as the Vaidikas that take Vedas as the pramana, as you know, and those such as Bauddhas and Christians and others who don't. And so if they ever meet, other than politeness, they would actually not agree with each other at all. That would be called a conflict. And in Sanskritam, the right word for that is vivada. In Vedas, however, this is not a vivada. We would really call this as a paradox, not a conflict. I actually looked up the definition of a paradox. I just let me read that. So it says, a paradox is an essentially absurd, self-contradictory statement or proposition that when investigated or explained may prove to be well-founded or true. Beautiful definition. So it says on the surface it looks like there's contradiction, there isn't. This is called in Sanskritam samvada, not vivada. So as you know, our entire literature, including the Bhagavad Gita and many of the Upanishads, have a dialogue between a teacher and a student. It's called a samvada. The student doesn't question what the teacher is saying, but may have a doubt about it. In our classes, and Swami Dayanand's classes also, this tradition is used. Even in the classes that I teach, I tell people that I'm going to be talking for the next hour or hour and a half. Unless you have some immediate issue with my sound, you cannot hear it, please keep your questions at the end. Then when the class ends, I ask, do you have any doubts? Can I do that? As opposed to in the middle of it, which is done in many of these laukika vyavahara, somebody raises a hand and says, I don't agree with what you're saying, which would be vivada. So this is called samvada. And this is an important thing to see because the entire Vedas is what is called apaurusheya jnanam. You know this by now. You pretty much have heard about this. Apaurusheya jnanam. Apaurusheya jnanam means it's not the interpretation of certain people. It is the voice of Ishvara himself. The voice of Ishvara himself has to be consistent, and yet it is given in two different ways. There is Srishti and there is not Srishti. So what is the truth about that? So there one sees, and this is the essence of the Advaita Vedanta, that Advaita Vedanta does not mean absence of Dvaita. This is a very fundamental thing, and I think everybody should understand it, as everybody does understand it. It is despite Dvaita, not the absence of Dvaita. And so our Acharyas have said that ultimately the sadhana consists of understanding this paradox. If you understand this paradox clearly, you are a Siddha Purushaha. You are not just a mumukshu. So just to give you an idea, some examples of the paradoxical statements. Ishavasya Upanishad. Tad ejati, tat na ejati. One that moves, one that goes, one that doesn't go. It's the same person. Tad dure tadavantike. The one which is far. This is exactly what happens. We look for the Atma, we look for Brahman, we look for Ishvara, all the same thing, as being very far from us. So we go on pilgrimages, we study. All our life we're saying, I'm looking for Bhagavan, for Ishvara. And this is Tadure. Ishvara is none other than, in fact, we are not there. It is really Ishvara who we are. This is how close can you get than that? So this is an interesting juxtaposition. Tadure tadantike. Then in Kathopanishad, Asino duram vrajati, shayano yati sarvataha. He says that not moving anywhere, it goes everywhere. Paradox. Shvetashvatara Upanishad says, Anoho aniyan mahato mahiyan. Smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest. Atma nihito guhayam asya jantoho tat akratuhu pashyati vidashoka dhatuhu prasadat mahimanam ishanam. Something like that. So again, there is conflicts in there. And then my favorite. This is the one that I struggled with for a long time from the Kenopanishad. Yasya amatam tasya matam. Matam yasya na vedasaha. Avikyatam vijanatam vigyatam avijanatam. I remember when I'm sure that Swami Dayanandji tried his best, but at that time in 1979 to 80, I really could not really get an understanding of this. What it basically says is one who says that he or she knows doesn't know, and one who says I don't know knows. Paradox. And it was really much later when I understood this, which says that Atma is neither seen nor unseen. There's no better way to explain that. So when I understood that, this is when some insights came about the study and so on. So anyway, so there are these apparent paradoxes. Now I come to the core of this talk. The body of work by Adi Shankara and the body of work of his Paramaguru Gaudapada Acharya. Now, I need not talk about the sacred place of Adi Shankara in the Parampara of Advaita Vedanta. We know that very well. He's not only a prolific teacher, unifying the vision of our Shastras, but his teachings are indisputable, comprehensive, clear, and most importantly, relatively easy to grasp even from those who have not yet become scholarly. there is some, this is what is called prasanna gambhiryam. So it's prasanna means that it's very pleasing, but at the same time, it is very valuable, very serious. This is the style of Adi Shankara. We know all that. He has been his bhashyas on the 10 principal Upanishads are well known. Bhashyas on the Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutras are the gold standards. So the prayer that Anuradha said earlier, Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, is very appropriate indeed. In addition, he is the author of numerous Prakarana Granthas. So we can see from here that the body of work by Adi Shankara covers the entire vision of the Shastras, which means profusely covering both the creation as well as non-creation, right? So this is now very well known, and we can understand it. Contrasted from that is the work of Sri Gaudapada Acharya. So except for a few minor works by him, his principal masterpiece is the Karika on the Mandukya Upanishad. As you know very well, a Karika is an independent work in poetry which may unfold the concepts of the Upanishad in great detail, but independently, not just merely translating the meaning of it. Of course, unfolding the meaning, but in a way which is not directly visible in the Upanishad itself. This is why it is so highly regarded by all the scholars of Vedanta. And even Adi Shankara has written a bhashya on his Paramaguru's Karika. So upon analysis, the Vedantic scholars see that the work of Gaudapada is totally devoted to non-creation. All the 4 prakaranas, namely Agama Prakarana, Vaithitya Prakarana, Advaita Prakarana, and Alata Shanti Prakarana, all the 4, consisting of, I believe, over 200 verses, emphasize the essential absence of creation. He might mention creation, but the emphasis is on non-creation. So this brings up an important question. Why is it that Shankara, covering the entire spectrum of possibilities, while his guru's guru, who himself he holds in such high regard, focuses only on that aspect of the Shastra that emphasizes only non-creation? Why is that? So this fact is admirably reconciled by the Mahatmas, the Jivan Muktas, who express their anubhava, their own experiences of mukti, total freedom while living. And in particular, the detailed commentary on the Karika by Swami Akhandananda sheds clear and detailed light on this topic. So, in considering the apparent differences, let us consider 2 aspects of teaching. Any teaching, but certainly Vedantic teaching. If we understand these 2 factors, we would see why the Guru and Shishya are taking different positions in emphasizing the cosmic creation. 2 aspects are as follows. One is the personality and the lifestyle of the teacher that they have chosen. A Jivan Mukta does not need to adhere to any one particular way of living. It's done. The clear vision of Ishvara in their lives gives them a total freedom. They don't ever abuse that freedom, but they have the freedom to do whatever they like. And so you find there are teachers who are, hundreds of them, even thousands, who are Virakta Mahatmas. This fact was not absolutely clear to me. Let me bring one interesting book to show you. I was in correspondence with Swami Tejomayananda of Chinmaya Mission. He's a friend of ours, and he sent me this book. So I have a friend that goes to Mumbai, and so we both have a great deal of respect for Swami Akhandananda. So Swami Tejomayananda sent me this book. It's a very interesting book. It's called Pavana Prasanga. So essentially, this is an autobiography of Swami Akhandananda. But more than an autobiography of himself, it is really more of a biography of all these Vidvat sannyasis in India. And one of the things I found out was if you really read this, for those you can read Hindi, all this is in Hindi. If you can read Hindi, please do so. What I found out was that Swami Akhandananda was, of course, born in a small village close to Varanasi. He says that every 4 or 5 villages has a Vidvat sannyasi, a Jivan Mukta. And they're sitting there without really being visible to the outside world. If somebody goes to them to ask questions, they answer it. They're not interested in teaching. They're not interested in moving around. They're just happy where they are. Thousands of such people all over India. Amazing. And this book actually talks about their views, their teachings. So this is one lifestyle. You have another lifestyle of people, such as Vivekananda, Swami Chinmayananda, my own Guru Swami Dayananda, who feel that I have discovered certain truths and I want to share it with others. And they have a gift of communication, language, and the health being able to go around. And what a remarkable legacy that they lead. Amazing, such people. I can tell you from my own Guru, I think Anuradha was talking about it, that how many teachers has Swami Dayananda generated from our ashram, in just our ashram in Sailorsburg. I think the last count that I had was that Swami Dayanandji has given a Diksha to about 250 Swamis. Just one person. So this is a different lifestyle altogether. So in terms of the two aspects separating Adi Shankara from Gaudapada Acharya, you can say that Gaudapada Acharya was of one style, one personality, which is, I just want to communicate in just a few words what I see as the ultimate goal. Whereas Adi Shankara, of course, did that, but in addition to it, he also took upon himself, I'm sure by the request of a lot of other people, to do much more than that. All of his bhashyas, as we talked about, not only that, but his travels, his mathas, the establishments of the mathas, revigorated the Hindu culture and society, and in addition to the very spiritual reason, very active, different lifestyle altogether. So this is one of the two reasons why the two are have a different emphasis. Let's go to the second one. In the second case, it is the level of students that they are choosing to address. So one is their own lifestyle, and the other one is who they are choosing to teach. Now here, as you know very well by now, from your studies, I'm going to be positive about that, that the learning of Vidya has one very important factor, which is the eligibility of the student. It's very fundamental to the whole thing. A high school student cannot understand quantum mechanics. There is a process involved. From biology 101 in the medical science to the general human body, specific diseases, specialization. At every one point, there is a certain maturation, certain understanding of the basics of that Vidya. This is very there. It's not possible to teach the same thing to someone. You have to be ready to understand. I am very fortunate that I have 4 grandchildren. My oldest one is 17. My youngest one, who was just born last week, a 17-year-old difference. It's amazing. So I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, Sonia. It is a pleasure for me to observe how she learns. So already now, she has an understanding of multiplicity. So she will talk to her mother and say, I want 2 cookies. So if you just give 1 cookie, she says, no, I want 2 of them. She already knows what is 1, what is 2. However, if we were to teach her the basics of arithmetic, she's not quite qualified. So probably the next step is you take 5 blocks or marbles or something, or grapes, and say, okay, Sonia, here are 5 grapes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got it? She says, yes. If I take out 1, how many is left? She'll probably say, I have no idea. What do you mean? 4 are left. Step by step, basic arithmetic is given. Okay. Now comes a very important next step. And this happens, I don't know when, probably around 4 or 5, kindergarten somewhere. Before that, the mind is not ready to learn. You tell the student, suppose you have 10 marbles. So the student will say, but I don't have them. No. Suppose you have. Really? Suppose? So you have to visualize, suppose I have 10 marbles. Then if you take out 4 out of them, how are left? And then if you take out another 4, another 2, how much is left? This is a very funny situation. You never had any marbles to begin with. Then you proposed that you had some, and then you said, take away them, you're back to not having them anyway. This is how it is taught. This is how it has to be done. So you go from Sthula Sharira to Sukshma Sharira. This is what is called Abhasavada. Abhasavada means that really speaking, our life is all full of Abhasavada. All the prarabdha karmas, the vasanas, is Abhasavada. We have to, just like a dream, you have to think about what is the possibility. Swami Dayanand used to say that very, very well. He says, if you look at it, most of the issues in our life are not based on physical problems. Oh, yes, you do have. If you fall down, you break your bone. Yes, there's a problem. If you're hungry, then you have to eat and so on. Yes. But if you look at the spectrum of our experiences, most of them is through abhasa. Oh, I wish I had done that. Why did that person tell me that? All thoughts is what is called abhasa, projections. So the teaching also is done through abhasa, distinguishing the abhasa from the reality. All of that has to be done through the teaching. So therefore, we can see that this is how the eligibility of people to grasp, to learn, to become wise slowly begins. Okay. So in the case of, again, now we can go back to Adi Shankara. And before we go to Adi Shankara, I'll just tell you one other thing. All Vedantic teachers, including myself, are faced with the dilemma. I remember when I started teaching 25 years ago, I had a group of students that I thought were not introduced to Vedanta, so I gave them some fundamental ideas. Then we went into more advanced texts, more advanced texts, more advanced texts. And so this batch of people got more educated towards the principles of Vedanta. In the meantime, they would bring their friends who were still very basic. So I had a dilemma. Should I start a new class? And in the beginning, I did start a couple of new classes, and we actually had advanced, intermediate, introductory. But it all gets mixed up. So now in my own teaching, I have some people who are advanced, some people who are not. And I have to keep not have to, but I love to keep their interest going. So this is a challenge for the teacher. Swami Dayanand was very good at it. His humor, his ability to grasp everybody, to make sure that their minds are with him, was exemplary, and we learned a lot from him. So anyway, the method of teaching to the level of eligibility is also part of the teaching. And you cannot say that you cannot learn from things that are unreal. Like, for example, the marble example in somebody, supposing you have 10 marbles. This is a learning from the unreal. We learn and we enjoy and we suffer and we transact with unreal things all the time. Don't you go to movies that you know are unreal and laugh and cry? Very interesting. You are crying. Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says it's fascinating. You find people who are eating a popcorn and crying. It is a very interesting thing because they know it's entertainment. They know it is fun, but at the same time, because of the abhimana, because they can see they can identify with the character, and the character cries, they also cry. So it is very possible to learn from unreal things. We are moved by reading a story. Do you not enjoy a rainbow? There is no reality to a rainbow. You cannot touch it. The younger kids actually try to run towards it. It is not there. Can you not see the blueness of the sky? Swami Akhandananda says you cannot use the blueness to wash your clothes and has become blue. So ultimately, really, it is just an appearance. There is no reality to it. So here, different prakriyas are used by the teachers. So, prakriya means the methodology of teaching. So this is where we have Abhasavada, Parichinnavada, and then we have different kinds of vivekas, Panchakosha Viveka. Really speaking, the most important prakriya in Advaita Vedanta, which is specifically, I wouldn't use the word created because nothing is created, but which is expressed, the highest level of prakriya expressed by Ishvara is avasthatraya viveka, prakriya, avasthatraya. Jagrad avastha, sushupti avastha, swapna avastha. Highest level. Specifically designed for the advanced study of Advaita Vedanta. So this has to be really understood very well. So a study of Vedanta, a study of dreams, which is exactly the topic of Mandukya Karika. Most of the time is spent in explaining that, is invaluable. In fact, Swami Akhandananda says so well, he says if a student of Vedanta should spend more time studying Swapnavastha than Jagratavastha. Very good advice. And Swapnavastha is very interesting. So in the short time that we have, I'll just give you a couple of examples and then it's time to wrap up already. It's already 45 minutes have gone by. So here, Gaudapada Acharya asks question. He says, in your dream experience, which by the way is not true to say, oh, dream experience is not real, this is really the reality. What are you talking about? When you are in the dream, then the Jagrata Avastha becomes unreal. They're exactly the same. There are some small differences. One is longer, the other one is short. But in terms of your experiences, your sukha-dukkha, your making plans, being disappointed in knowing people, and so on, it's all the same. So if you look at the dream as the prakriya, do you have a mother or father in the dream? Do you have time to be born? Do you see yourself dying? Is there death in the dream? Don't you also make plans in the dream? Tomorrow I will do this. And that person was very helpful to me, so I must pay him back. Disappointment that he didn't. All these things are there in dream. There's no difference. It suddenly comes on you without any background, without any pause, leaving no wake behind. You can't even remember the dream. All an appearance. Therefore, Gaudapada Acharya says the following. So this is the crux of the whole thing. Following dharma, doing the right thing, which is to create sukham in this life, ahika sukham, or doing yajnas, etc., which is amushmika sukham for next life, preparing for it, postponing, etc. All of this has to be given up. If we cling to this fact that we are part of a working model of life, and then I have to do everything this way and so on and so forth, it is not going to really happen. Adi Shankara himself actually told his mother, he says, "Mother, do you know how many mothers I've had in the past? Do you know how many children that I've had in the past? Where are they now? I'm still here, and this will go on." I should have really, sorry, just about that. Anyway, this is the teaching where really there is no beginning, no end. It is like swapna, is what I would call a graduate level teaching. So graduate level teaching is that it is exactly like when pretend you have 10 marbles, and in the end, pretend you have nothing left. This is the graduate level. But an undergraduate level is much more specific. You have 10 marbles on a table. Now you take away 2. You can touch the rest of the 8. How many are left? All of that is this is the undergraduate level. So the undergraduate level means, and by the way, this is nothing new. This is exactly how our Shastra teaches. So you have the karma section. Preparation. Bhagavad Gita, exactly the same issue. There's nothing new in all this. The next level is manasika karma, upasana. And then if you understand the presence of Ishvara in your life, you discover that, and you can feel the presence that really the jiva itself is nothing but the presence of Ishvara. Then the dawn of jnanam takes place. And the jivan mukti means there is nothing me, there is nothing mine, it is all Ishvara. And I am nothing but the essence of Brahman. This is non-creation. And so Gaudapada is teaching a graduate level course. Even in medical science, this would be where you just go through the basics first to equip yourself, but the specialization is completely different. Adi Shankara, on the other hand, of course knows this. It's not as though the Adi Shankara he's as good as Gaudapada. But he chooses to teach undergraduate courses all the way through and prepares people for the understanding. So with this, we can understand the emphasis of the two teachers and their place in the Sampradaya of Advaita Vedanta. So this is the essence of the reconciliation between the two viewpoints, that Srishti is an intermediate step. Non-Srishti is the final step. So with that, I end the class, and if I may, all Americans have to give a small commercial. So I may invite to you, we are going to be starting a course on on the Mandukya with Karika, even though I'll be taking the Hindi versions, but my teaching will be in English. So if you have any interest, please write to me. Let me just give you the email address. It is vijaykapoor@gmail.com. All one word, vijaykapoor@gmail.com. Or the YouTube channel AVC, standing for Arsha Vidya Center. AVC Bay Area. So if you tune to that, you can see when the course will be starting, probably sometime in June. And I invite you to join me if you want to understand the more details of this Karika by Swami Akhandanandaji. Hari Om, thank you so much. And with that, I end my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijayji, for explaining to us how Advaita teachers look, and Shankara and Gaudapada look at creation as an intermediate step for students to understand the world in which they transact, and then finally lead them to the ultimate reality, which is really beyond creation, and there's no changeless world. We have a few questions, and one of which is that, in Shankara, in his various commentaries on, say, for example, the Upanishads, if any particular Upanishad has a certain creation model, how does he then reconcile with it? How does he explain it in his commentaries?
So I think it is exactly the same thing. I don't have any examples to give you. I can probably research and give it to you. But when he's teaching creation, he's very loyal to it. It's not correct to tell a student that really what I'm teaching you is just for the short term. Ultimately, we have to reject it. That would not really, because nobody would like that. Nobody would follow that. So at that point, you are really totally dedicated to doing that. And of course, as I was saying, that his works are tangentially talking about non-creation, as opposed to Gaudapada Acharya, who's basically talking about that. So you'd have to go to some other places where the tangential view of non-creation is all to be given. I'll have to probably, if I had done my homework, I would have cited all of that, and I could probably find that. But when you are talking to an intermediate student, you focus on that, and later on you have to switch over to somebody else, would be the way I would answer that question.
Thank you, Vijayji. We have another question from Shanti Ravindran, who says that apparently there are Finnish management schools, or I think whatever schools, they use something called Finnish schools use something called phenomenon-based learning. And this phenomenon-based learning apparently uses things like gravity and learning all principles. Is there a parallel in Vedantic teaching, is her query.
So I'm not aware of this one particular, I can only comment based on what you've just said. So really speaking, the phenomenon-based learning would be a serious study of Abhasavada. And so the entire spectrum of how human beings experience things, we have the three shariras. We have the Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Sthula Sharira, the various sense organs, how the Atma touches objects, does it touch objects, is all with respect to that. So there is nothing new that needs to be done. It is extremely comprehensive and complete in one form or the other. So I think that the Vedanta is not as though we have to discover new things. Whatever is necessary for a complete freedom is already there. We just have to focus on the right portions of it.
Anjan Nandi has a comment. He says, your storytelling way of your conversation give the understanding of the various treasures of dharmic living. And then also the dream state, which is the essence of mystic life. He says the way you have communicated that is very good, and he's thanking you for that. So we should all, I suppose that is the main teaching of today's session, that we should look at creation like how we look as our dreams. They are real at that time, but they're really not real. Is that how we should take it?
And I think that is absolutely correct. And if I were to simplify it, which is the teaching of the Vedanta, we should learn not to take things seriously. The only serious thing that we should really learn is about who I am. Everything else is anirvachaniya, not worth really spending too much time on. And the sooner you come to that, don't even take yourself very seriously. This is what happens. I'm a scholar. I've got to do this. Then people look up onto this. It's taking yourself too seriously. There is no reality in this world except the Atma. So take it in that manner. And so I would say a simple thing is to say laugh and don't take things seriously, except for your own self, which requires a lot of dedication, and it has to be unfolded in the right way. Yes.
Just immediately after your comment, Narasimha Rao ji has this comment: shouldn't we be serious about sadachara?
So that is a very good point, and in fact, I kind of touched upon that. So the sadachara also is a temporary thing. We have to give up that also. So both punya and papa are encompassing. Papa is obviously, and sadachara means that you make your life so pleasant and so beautiful that you are attached to it. The essence of the Atma is not sadachara, it is nirakara. And so even a pleasant, conducive life itself also is something that is holding me back. But in the meantime, as an intermediate step, if you want to do sadachara, go ahead with it. But ultimately, you have to give up that also.
Thank you so much, Vijay ji. We would have loved to continue, but time is not at our disposal. I have, of course, a personal request. Can somebody please translate Swami Akhandanatha's works into English so that the rest of us who don't know Hindi can benefit from the knowledge of these Mahans? Of course, we'll like to.
There are some books available, not many. I think probably the best thing is to listen to someone that can explain. So attending a class or something, but really, other than that, you're absolutely right. It's not possible.
Viewers, we have many more sessions coming up later in the evening at 7 p.m. India time. We have this talk, Ancient Solution to Our Modern Problems by Shanti Vratananda. So please do join us and benefit from this great learning. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much.